Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Coming at you a little bit late this week. My computer seems to keep giving me some issues whenever I try to go live with these things. So, as a tech guy, I got to figure that out. But welcome back to our weekly IT Spotlight. This week, we are going to be discussing, just kind of want to talk about some cloud stuff that we have been getting questions about as of recently. We're getting a lot of questions about the benefits of cloud and why should you do stuff with it. So the first question everybody asks me is, what is the cloud? So the cloud is basically, for all intents and purposes, someone else's server. Your stuff is somewhere else. So, what does that mean? Well, it means a lot because you have to trust where you are putting your data. So, at this point, what are some cloud servers? So everybody's probably using a cloud environment already. They're probably using Office 365, maybe your Nest environment, your thermostat, your smart home, Alexa, Siri. All of that is cloud, and you're trusting your data to someone else's cloud, right? And that's fine. Actually, the biggest thing we recommend is just do your due diligence. But as a business owner, what does it mean for you to put your network up there? So now we start talking about the big guys, right? Microsoft Azure services or Amazon Web Services or hosted data center. And why should you? Well, the first reason is disaster. So your servers aren't in your network. Last week, our office got hit pretty hard with that. I think it's pronouncing right, the Duraco that came through from Iowa, Illinois, hit Ohio. I think it hit parts of Wisconsin and South Dakota and everything else too. There is a lot of upside to having your data center not in your office. So we had a couple customers that lost power for 4 days. We really can't power servers for 4 days. But a very inexpensive generator can power the internet for 4 days. And if you can power the internet for 4 days and all of your stuff is sitting on Microsoft's cloud, you're up and running. Or if your internet and office goes down, your employees can go home, securely VPN into their servers, and continue to work as if they were sitting at their desks. The other piece of this puzzle is the fact that you never have to worry about those, power and internet and capital expense and buying new, the loss of a hard drive, any of those things. Because it's someone else's hardware. It's someone else's quote unquote problem. So, how does it work? Why should I do it? There is still a lot of questions as to. We get a lot of feedback of, I don't know what the cloud is. I don't know what my servers do, but I do know that I can grab my server and I can run for the hills with my data, right? Yes, that's a very valid argument. But what are you going to do with it when the hills have no power, no internet? Your server is still available to you when it's sitting on Microsoft's servers. It's just not in your hands. And it's one less thing for you to carry to the hills. How do you connect to it? Well, you can connect to it just like you do now. Your computer can connect to it, depending on what kind of internet speed you have at the office or at home. You can connect just like you're working as you are right now. The other piece of that puzzle is, do you want to work centrally, work remotely? Do you have a lot of people that are at home? In which case, then we need to do different types of VPNs. Do you have a lot of people that are working at the office? Then we do a site-to-site VPN. Either way, we maintain data security and integrity during this whole time. The biggest piece of this is which cloud is best. Are you going to use a cloud application, or are you going to build a cloud server? We've seen a lot of recent push because of QuickBooks. People don't want to go to QuickBooks Online, so we're hosting QuickBooks servers in the cloud for them so that they don't have to go online. They can still use the QuickBooks desktop that they're used to and they like with the reports, and they can continue to host it up in the cloud. And they don't have to have an office. So many people are going away from offices right now that they got to figure out how to continue to work, and their employees continue to work at all times. So it's an opportunity. That next time your server environment comes up for a refresh, instead of spending $10, $15, $20, $30,000 on hardware that is going to be gone in 2 years, that is tied to your office, that is tied to the power, that is tied to the air conditioning, that is tied to the sprinkler system and everything else in your office, why not put that up in the cloud? Why not use a hosted server? Why not rent a server from Microsoft instead of buy a server from Dell? There is a cost analysis that has to go in. The rental is not cheap. It is coming down all the time as we go forward in the usage of this. Just like everything else, the price gets cheaper. So those of you guys that jumped on last year are probably going to pay more than those of you guys that jump on next year. But there are also ways that you can make this affordable and continue moving down that road. The easiest spot is a lot of people have an Active Directory server to maintain their security. Use that as your Active Directory. Instead of joining your computers to the domain in your office, join them to the domain in the cloud. You still get a lot of the benefits. You are able to do some of the group policies and so forth, but you don't have to buy a server. Do a hybrid environment. Working on one client right now where we're going to do the Azure Active Directory, but they still want a little bit of that, I want to run for the cloud. So we're putting a NAS. We're not buying a server. We're going to put a NAS device in their office. We're going to implement SharePoint Online. It's a cloud, not a server, so they can share some data up there. It doesn't mean that it has to be a server, doesn't mean it has to be an application. The basic definition of cloud is something that is not in your office but is on someone else's servers. And I think as we go forward, you're going to start seeing more and more people continuously using the cloud. They're going to be forced to, because businesses, developers, software people, they don't want to sell you a large software package and then have to support it on your environment and figure out how to continue to charge you for support, and in an environment where you might not have spent a dime on your infrastructure. So they want you to do it on their servers. So they're not going to sell you an on-prem. They're going to sell you a cloud-based service. The cost of internet is going down. So how fast your internet goes is, well, back when I started the Business Knowledge Systems, our first customer didn't have internet. And now they have fiber to every site and internet on their phones and are constantly running and having no issues. So, the cost of internet is dropping through the floor. The cost of data is dropping through the floor. Meanwhile, the premium on your office space is getting expensive. Do you need to have that server sitting over there taking up space that you could have an employee sitting at? Do you need a 3,000 square foot office because 5,000 of it is taken up by server space? And now, if you put everything in the cloud, could you have 2 employees go home plus the servers, and now only need a 1,500 square foot office? Um, Maybe you save their money there. You know, your capital expense of 30 grand every other year or every 3 years on new servers just went away. Your monthly expense went up, say $600-700 a month. But your rent went down. You no longer pay rent. You no longer pay an employee 3 hours of steering wheel time each day, going back and forth each way, to come to the office. You don't have to pay electricity at the office. You have more productivity. Your guys are out there selling. They're actually in the field all the time. You know, they're not coming back to the office to fill out a sales commission or a sales form. They're doing it from the road. They pull up their laptop in the car, they pull up the SharePoint document, and they fill it out and hit submit, and it's done. They need that file that they were looking for customer ABC. They pull up their laptop, they open up SharePoint, or they VPN connect to the server farm, and they pull the file off the server, depending on the size of where it's at, and they give it to the customer. And they can VPN all from their hotspots on their phones. So having a traditional server farm is getting less and less of a necessity nowadays. Redundant internet for bigger companies is becoming a thing. SD-WAN, for those of you guys that don't know, provides redundancies in your internet connections, and I've even support redundant internets and voice over IP, so you don't even lose a call in the middle of an internet outage. Yeah, there are some planning that needs to go into going cloud. Like I said, the first question is what? Your servers, an app, an email, a document. A lot of people have implemented Teams. It's a cloud-based application, you know, and you can use that cloud-based application for file sharing and file maintenance. So take a look at your business, take a look at your workflows, take a look at your processes. Then sit down with your IT guy, which we'd love it to be us, and say, hey, of these processes, what do I have to worry about? Where are my security gaps, disaster recovery gaps? And does cloud fix or provide any coverage for those gaps? It was a security gap, Active Directory with group policies and that kind of stuff. Is it a Active Directory with Office 365 with two-factor authentication? Is it a procedure gap? My team can't get access to the data they need to see during the day. Is it a disaster gap? Well, I've got everything sitting here. I don't do backups of it. And what happens if the building burns down, right? And then the other piece of this, once you kind of sit down with your IT person and you walk through some of these questions, the next piece of the puzzle is cloud the right one? You know, do you heavily rely on a SQL database, Great Plains type application? And do you want your users to use VDI, virtual desktop interfaces, as compared to their own personal desktop interface? How do you want your employees to interact with the data? May answer the question on if you even want to go cloud. And then once you decide that, then you pick the cloud. Okay, you're gonna go Microsoft, you're gonna go third party, you're gonna go hosted, you're gonna go Rackspace, you're gonna go AWS. Are you gonna do VDI, like I said, virtual desktop? So instead of buying brand new five $1,000 desktops, you go buy dumb terminals that open up and connect you directly to a virtual desktop that is in the cloud. More secure, data never leaves the cloud. Data never leaves your environment. So those are the kind of things that your IT guy or girl, pardon me, should be asking you. And when it ultimately comes down to, we always get the question of, is it more secure? And the answer always is, as long as you do your due diligence on the customer or vendor you choose, it is just as secure, if not more, than what you are currently doing. And it is available to you. There are things there are technical needs that you have to do, but it is more secure. Well, like I said, sometimes more secure than you already are. Cost-wise, it's probably going to be a little bit of an eye shock or for the first, when you get that monthly bill, just to understand what it is. There are ways to manage that. There are ways to keep that in check, but keeping an eye on that is a good option, a good thing. But for the most part, for a small business, 10, 20 employees, one server, it's a great idea. For a large business, multiple servers, we have one customer that has a dozen servers, multiple tunnels to connections and vendors, and we've already started planning. Now, they refreshed their hardware last year, but we've already started planning for a potential cloud environment deployment in the next 3 years. They can save the amount of energy. Their cost savings will be in capital and electricity alone, much less disaster. So that will come as a huge win for them when we get there. Also shaves down the complexity of their environment too. So those are just some of my quick thoughts on cloud. Should you go? I don't know. Should you entertain it? Should you talk to somebody about it? Yes. Should you go tomorrow? Probably not. If you're just now thinking of it, 12 months in a large environment where you're moving servers up there. Not just a quick boom thing done. Think about it, document it, work with your IT team, make sure that you're getting the right stuff in the right place for the right price. Just a quick example, Microsoft has servers on the East Coast, West Coast, and the Midwest. Depending on the data center you pick, you could be paying more for the same server. If you don't need huge speed, obviously the closer you are to your data, the faster it'll be, i.e. you're in Chicago, you want a Midwest server. But if the speed isn't the issue, the East servers are a little cheaper. So take a look at all those things. You can probably save yourself a lot of money just by keeping an eye on that, and have your IT guy or girl double check all of their numbers. If you don't have anybody, you want to talk to somebody about cloud, go ahead and hit us up in the comments section on our social media at BKS-systems. You can always email us or call us or find us. Like I said, we'd be glad to sit down and discuss your options with you on going cloud. It is an option for everyone, and everybody should be at least thinking about it or looking at it for their next refresh. I'm not saying it is for everyone, but when you do perform your next server refresh, you should evaluate how cloud can affect you and what costs will be involved in that. In the meantime, anybody has any questions, thoughts, or concerns, would love to talk to you. Like I said, hit us up at BKS-systems on social media, and I look forward to talking to you guys all really soon. Everybody have a great afternoon, and I will see you next week. Have a good one.